Sorry about that. Trying to learn the software and failing terribly. Um, Hopefully people will come back. I'm in the middle of making a video that hopefully will be a little more expressive and understandable, in the sense that it will be something that kind of shocked me, I'll be honest with you. I like to watch lots of documentaries and things like that. And now you won't think I'm really here. Um, let me tell my friends that I am actually here, in a way, I guess. Just a second here. I tell you, I'm trying. I was. It was supposed to not. It was supposed to be private, but it's still. I mean, I'm just trying to learn this stuff. Uh, well, I plan to do a more detailed video. I just wanted to get this out there. I was reading. I was watching a documentary, and I'm just going, I've never heard of this. Never heard of this. I'm like, very strange. And I was watching this. It's on Amazon video. It's called Buried Secrets, and it's called the Hardin Cemetery Disaster. And they spell cemetery wrong, just per usual. And I was looking at this, I'm just going, and it's talking about how it's one of the worst flood disasters in the United States ever. It covered the states of, let's see if I can find it. Anyway, it's very hard to find information on this because most of the places you look, there's only a few views. There's a few places that you can find information on this flood. And it was a hugely devastating flood that covered half of North Dakota, most of South Dakota, half of Nebraska, half of Kansas, the lower part of Minnesota, almost the entire Wisconsin area, the entire Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. This was huge. And I never heard any information of comparison. You know, when Hurricane Katrina came in, the incredibly horrible flooding they had in Louisiana and New Orleans and stuff. And this is North Midwest. I talked to Tammy, and she'd never heard of it. And I mean, there's no way anybody in the neighboring states wouldn't have heard about this event. It was catastrophic. 55,000 people were displaced. 32 to 50 people, depending on which source. As we know, that this is not unusual for death totals to vary, with the Mandela Affect especially. Just it's all over the place. And the truly horrible thing about it is that in Hardin, Missouri, a small community of 600 people or so, very tied to the land, farmers, and just good old country people that care about their history and about their family, just very traditional. Um, they had something really horrible happen. They had half of their historical cemetery be displaced by a lake that occurred during this flooding. And the flooding talked about $15 billion in damages and approximately 26 billion nowadays it would cost or so. And it was a 320,000 square mile area. It was the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Kansas River overflowed. The rain was outrageous amounts of rain. As much as 48 inches between April 1st and August 31st in portions of east central Iowa. When, we in Central Valley of California, we had like 28 to 30 a year, and that's spread out. And anytime we get anything a little more than that, we'll have flooding. They had the National Weather Service helping them. They had the Civil Air Patrol. It was a national emergency was declared. They had forensic archaeologists and anthropologists and all kinds of people. The coffins, including the vaults, were bobbing around like corks all the way down the river, sometimes miles from the cemetery itself. And these people, this was their family. And so every effort was made, and this was before genetic testing was really, imagine it was in the early works, but it wasn't really being done in large amounts, and it would have been very, very costly. Nowadays, it's pretty quick to tie families together through DNA, but not so much then. So here we have this devastating flood, considered the worst flood in the history of the United States, in the sense of how big of an area it covered. Katrina was devastating, and people, a lot of loss of life and otherwise there as well. But as per area, and the devastation area was huge. So I'm going to do a video a little more in depth on this because I'm still a little stunned by it. I'll be honest with you. It's like, these poor people with all their family. And that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part is that the bones of people this was a cemetery that stretched from pre-Civil War to current time. So we're talking a couple, 100 plus years of history and people being buried there from this community. So everybody probably knows everybody there, and everybody has family buried there. There's a story in the documentary about a woman worried about the baby that died at birth, whether they would find it. I guess it was a little girl, I don't know, little girl, I think, I'm not sure. It must have been just so stressful and devastating for these people, and yet I have never heard of it. And you read about any of the other disasters. Always make allusions to other disasters that have happened in the United States. Never heard anything about this, and this was over a huge area. And I'm sure that the neighboring states were doing drives and everything else to help these people that were displaced. They were doing volunteer things, sending food. I know these people were helping each other. That's the way these people are there. They were there trying to help their neighbor. And they would know about it. They would remember it. It would be a huge, huge memory, even for young people, to remember this. And it's called Buried Secrets, is the documentary, and it has several episodes. This is the first one. I watched it last night, started going, it takes a little while to kind of sink into my head. I'm just going, literally, when I'm looking at this map, I was trying to figure out how to screen share. I'm still trying to figure that out. That the map, and I'm going to put this map up when I get my video done. This map is like about a fifth of the United States in amount of flooding area. I mean, it's a lot. And these people, their loved ones, the ones that didn't stay sealed into the coffins or the vaults, bones were found as the waters receded in people's, farming area, in the fields. They're always finding bones, and so they collected them. And put all the femurs in one pile, the skulls, and horrific. And there were hundreds of people that were never identified. Yeah. And yet you don't hear anybody remember the Great Flood of '93. People don't forget things like that. This is a Mandela effect for me. I have never heard of this flood. And, they would have just, always make references to it. And it's not that long ago. So it's like, and the video, the documentary is just absolutely horrific, what these poor people went through, and what the scientists and whoever was working trying to identify these remains. I still don't know. I haven't done the research yet to find out what happened to the ones they couldn't identify, because they did bury the ones they could identify. Well, the ones they could identify as a single individual, let's put it that way, that were in a coffin, sealed, and not, flowing here and willy-nilly, that those they buried and put identification so that if later time they could be identified, but they don't really say what they did with the rest. And I know they kept some and didn't bury them at all, which I think is horrible. I'm all for science, but I have a funny idea. I like remains to be respected. I don't, especially for the feelings of the family. And it's like, can you imagine you have your family, your great-grandparents, your grandparents, your parents, any other family member that died in a plot, and they're just gone. They're gone. And I'm sure I make a bet this isn't the only cemetery that was impacted. I'm going to try to do some more research on this. But this is absolutely heartbreaking. These people would come every day to see the list of the ones that they identified or didn't identify. And I shudder to think if they've just kept all these other bones like in storage somewhere, because they didn't want to put them in a mass grave, so to speak, because they had the others in single coffin kind of vault things. I don't know. This is shocking to me. Just, it's bad enough, when there was a bombing on the Statue of Liberty I didn't know about, because the first attack on American soil in my memory was Pearl Harbor. And now we've got attacks in the Northwest, with balloons coming over with bombs on them. And we have this, of course, the Statue of Liberty, and we have all these things that just, the walls Hitler built. It's like, you just wonder, what kind of world are we in now? But this is I just wanted to make sure that I addressed this. It is not easy to find information on this. YouTube has some sites that have had quite a few views, but some not so much. Yeah, exactly, Data. We're not all from the same place. I would have known, because I had TV back then. I'm a very empathetic person. I would have felt so bad. And they would have shown the coffins floating in the, oh God. I know they had that in New Orleans too. It's like, how horrible must that be? Yeah, but I mean, I didn't, never heard of it before. This Buried Secrets was done in 2005 or something. And I was always watching things like that. Yeah, but it's like, how did I not know this? How did I not know this? This is crazy. And, I'm thinking, was I just not paying attention? And it's like, no, I would have known this. This was one of the greatest flood disasters in the history of the United States. You would have watched people be displaced. You would have seen things about the cemetery. You would have seen people interviewed. It would have been big news because, disasters are always big news. So I'm going to be asking more and more people if they remember this. I'm glad, Data, that you are aware, but maybe people from other timelines are not. But it's absolutely heartbreaking, just heartbreaking. My heart just goes out to these people. And yeah, 1993. It was kind of weird. You say it same time Mandela died, and that time Sinbad died too. I mean, the windows of vision that we have seems to be weird. Seems strange. And it's like, I know I would have heard about this. I mean, like I said, I'm a very compassionate person. That would have broken my heart. And so did they tell you how bad it was, Data, and your friends in Nebraska? Did they tell you? Oh, in the 90s, early 90s were bad. Were they displaced? Did they end up having to? 55,000 people were displaced and had to leave their homes. They kept on having to call more and more experts in. Thank goodness. It's like, and you would have heard, I mean, with Katrina, which is, look at what year was Katrina. Hurricane Katrina. Now that killed a lot more people. It was just 1,833. As for loss of life, it was a much worse disaster. And it tied as the costliest tropical cyclone on record as $125 billion. And that happened in 2005. That happened between 23rd and the 31st of August. It just wham. And that affected New Orleans, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Gulf Coast. And mostly Louisiana was the most highly impacted. At least with the other, I think they had some. That's why not as many people died, is they had some time to get out because it was caused by rain, because they could see the writing on the wall. And supposedly a man is accused of causing tremendous damage by taking down sandbags because he wanted to keep his wife from being able to get to him because he wanted to party some more. It's like, he must have been drunk really bad or something, because it's like, wow. I mean, the stories behind this, and like I said, I'll do a much better informed video. I'm still just kind of floundering with my tech ability, so that I can give you a more rounded information with pictures, and also provide you some little less known stories of the event, because there's going to be some strange stories come out of this. So in that 2-year window from June 92, you saw Horns on Moses statue data, and the hands change position. God touches man painting, and Smithsonian shift from institute to institution. Yeah, we must have had one heck of a shift in 93, 92. I'm thinking back. Hi, Tammy. We are just talking about the flood of 93 in the Midwest, how devastating it was. I mean, they didn't have the loss of life, but um, up to that time, it was the worst flood they'd ever had. And the cemetery in Hardin was impacted with coffins floating everywhere, bodies, loose bones being found all over. I mean, you wouldn't believe the stack of bones, and they separated them according to what they were. It was like so kind of morbid and sad all at the same time. Right, and Dallas protects because the Cowboys won. When was that? Really? Maybe we should look between 92 and 93 about events that happened that are recorded in this timeline to see if there's some more anomalies there, because strange things are going on at this time in our history. And I think that I don't know exactly how you look at it, but maybe those are times when things are in flux and can go one way or the other according to the attitudes of us on Earth at the time. Sinbad's Shazam window. Yeah. But I will do some more video on that, because there's just such a big story to tell, and I want to give it justice. I want to give the people justice that suffered through it, and hopefully find some interesting stories connected to it that aren't readily available from just Googling regular things. So, because I'm sure that there's some weird things that happened during that time as well. There are. There's creepy, weird stuff that probably happened. And I'll try to see if I can find some of it. It's like, wow. 2002, 2003. What? We ought to look at what was going on politically at that time as well. See if there are changes in our memories there. I think this is a period in time where things could go one way or the other, maybe. Clinton, oh God, that was a mess, wasn't it? His administration was a mess. Yeah. Isn't that the chemtrails started around then, didn't they? I know some of them started earlier, but we really started noticing them then. Yep. I think you're right. Something weird going on. These poor people in this flood. Devastating. Just devastating. And I can't imagine a farmer trying to till his field finding a skull in the middle of it. I mean, you're not even going to want to touch it, really. And they didn't find them all. No, they didn't find everything. Some things break down. They weren't in any condition to be recovered. Just really, there's a big monument there, and they've got markers for the ones that they found as complete skeletons. But there's over 500 in the cemetery were displaced, and they only identified 200 or something, or less. I don't know what they did with the bones because they didn't do a mass burial, at least not what I saw in the documentary. And it's like, I hope they're not just putting them in the back room somewhere. That would just, that's just not right, okay? It's just not right. Oh yeah, and it was the height, really the one of the higher points of the Cold War at that time too. Um, People were accusing the government of hiding information on aliens and UFOs, uh, things like that. There's lots of intrigue and spy stuff, and yeah. So were they trying to manipulate our reality back then? I don't know. Or manipulate our perceptions? It's starting to sound like it's conspiracy theorist. I'll try to do a video that gives this topic justice and gives us some insights. And sorry about the other stream that was. I was doing it private, but it's still, I'm trying to learn OPS. I'm trying to, and it's like what I need is to have Scott talk me through it because he does it and he knows what he's doing. It's like I'm watching videos and trying to teach me how to do it. It's like, oh, I don't know. I can't do some things because they're phasing out using Hangouts as a streaming option on YouTube. Because I could have screen shared if I could use the Hangouts, but it won't let me do it because I guess either I don't have enough subs or something. Well, supposedly the Cold War ended when the Berlin Wall came down, but we're still having little slap fights with people. It's like it's pretty obvious, I think, to most of us that the regular people in this world are perfectly okay, but there are just parts of the world that keep things going for their own profit, and they don't care what happens to the rest of us. And because I don't believe people in any country are bad, the regular people. They're usually extreme factions or people manipulated by the government. And I don't even think it's religion manipulating people. I think the leaders are using religion to manipulate their people. That the leaders don't actually believe, but they know they can get people to do what they want through fanatical religious brainwashing. So you think that it's the religion? No. It's the use of it to manipulate people. So this is, I don't think for a minute that these people would normally do the things they do. They're just a little bit confused and lost. And they don't figure out that they're being used. They don't figure it out because they're such, they've been so programmed to believe certain things. Well, I know that Scott talked about chemtrails and said that they're from way back, further back. Scott Harrison talked about they were further back. History keeps changing. You check history, things always seem to happen earlier than they did in your memory. Earlier and earlier and earlier. And like technology is earlier and earlier and earlier. It's like, and they don't really tell you where this technology comes from. It just like springs out like a weed in the middle of nowhere, practically. Some of it seems to be very oddly, ta-da, it's here. I know we have a lot more advanced tech than that they allow us to see because they want to maximize their profits. So they make a little tiny upgrade to the phone and then print out another phone, and it's super expensive, even though it only costs $2 to make it. Yeah, you see, that's it. It's like every time when we just had a couple of really huge shifts, and my elbow scar, remember it was, I don't know if you can see, it was really blue and sticking up. Now it's flattened out. It's more mottled. It's barely sticking up, and it doesn't hurt when I bump it. I'm in a new body. Well, not new. Wish it was newer. I could use a new body, but it's a different body. That's one of my shift indicators is my scar. Trails from the 20s. I remember watching a movie that was supposed to be set in the 1800s and there were chemtrails in the sky. I'm just going, somebody didn't catch that one. So I'm going to have to do some serious history spelunking and look at not only this flood, but maybe other things going on at the same time to see if weather had been manipulated for some reason, which I think that can be done. I certainly hope they didn't do that. It wasn't done. I'd like to think it was just a natural disaster that wasn't preempted by or encouraged by some other technology, I would hope. But it would be interesting to see the politics of the time. So it's going to take me a bit to put together something that's really worthy of your time to watch, really, because I care about the time that you spend to watch my contributions to YouTube. I want them to be educational, informative, and thought-provoking whenever possible. So I think I'm going to let you go because it is kind of late. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. Sorry about the earlier time when I was like, and I put that on private and was still, I was clicking all these things, and I'm sometimes sometimes I'm a blonde. I'll be honest with you. Thank you so much for coming in, and let me know anything you noticed that was going on in the '93 that didn't make sense to you. That's like strange or odd. So that may be connected to the Mandela Effect that we hadn't really connected. Because I think there was a lot of things going on right about that time that were very profound. Good night. Thank you for coming in. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. What's they all say? It's up to you. And you take care. Yeah, 93. Yeah, that was strange days. After the 80s and the big hair, we went kind of downhill, didn't we? He gave rocket tech to China. Jeez. And we complain about Trump. I mean, I complain about every president. Because either they promise things they can't deliver, or they're just annoying. Wow. Be well, everybody. And I'll talk to you next Wednesday. And maybe I'll be able to get a video up between now and Wednesday if I can figure out what I'm doing. Yeah, these our presidents think they're king, don't they? They think they can do anything they want. Power goes to their heads. Well, keep thinking those good thoughts. Good night, everybody.